how that is impacting you from a psychological perspective, because you need to be in a position where you can actually bounce back. It doesn't matter what someone says. Damien Andrews here for NextGen Sales Masterclass. And one of the topics that's really difficult to handle, because a lot of people reject it, is handling rejection. Um, I don't think people fully appreciate how much that impacts on your psychology and your ability to perform. A lot of what I've seen from dealing with salespeople, and myself included, is this whole concept of procrastination. And where that comes from is usually this fear of rejection. We don't want to ask for the sale because we're worried we're going to get told no. Um, and that's really, it's a challenging thing to overcome. I know from my perspective, overcoming that was really difficult. And it didn't need to be. I made it difficult. It's like most things in life, they're pretty simple, but we overcomplicate it and make it difficult for ourselves. And I liken that story. I mean, comes to the conscious and unconscious learning, but I liken it to when I was in the army. There was a guy in the army, and he was always dating these really amazing women, and we couldn't work out why. Because I mean, he was a good-looking guy, but he wasn't really bright. And when I had a chat to him about that, I asked him about it, and he said what I didn't see was that he asked a lot of people, a lot of women, and most of them had said no, was what he said, but we just saw the ones that said yes. And from a sales perspective, that's really, really important, because when we look at all those people, we see these flashy sales people that are, there's a lot out there, sales trainers, that kind of thing, that are talking about, oh, we did this and did that, and how wonderful is it? What we tend to do is we misconstrue, we create a false reality that we think, they just go out there and it's just, just magical. Yeah, there are sales techniques, there are skills, and there's that ability to be able to do that. But the real important thing to understand with this, and this is where this is really, and probably one of the most important videos out there, is to understand how important your belief in yourself, and this is where ego is really important. A positive ego, don't like the word positive, but it's a whole nother story. Now, having an ego where you believe in yourself and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. When you have that ego, I mean, it's so important from so many different aspects in your life, is to understand what is important for you and keep moving forward in the direction you want to go. Assuming you have a direction, it's a whole different story. But it's really important to understand the direction you're going and then believe in yourself that that direction is worthwhile, that you are worthwhile of that outcome, because you are. And this is where it is so, so important to really understand this, not just at a conscious level, at an unconscious level. And that's where that fear of rejection comes in. Overcoming this fear of rejection is really, really important, because in the situation, when you're there and someone's said no and said, okay, I can't do that, you can walk out of that and go, they're rejecting me. No, they're not rejecting you as a person. They're rejecting your offer. And part of that might be you need some skills on creating that trust, might be you need skills on understanding, do they really have a need? There's so many times, and I've done this, spend time with someone that has no interest in the buying the products or service, never did. A lot of times people want to listen. You spend a lot of time listening without really qualifying that. So you really need to be careful from that perspective when we're dealing with rejection, how that is impacting you from a psychological perspective, because you need to be in a position where you can actually bounce back. It doesn't matter what someone says, water off a duck's back, as that terminology goes, is to be in that position where if someone rejects you, that's not a reflection of who you are. And people say, "Oh, but that's not hard. That's not easy." Well, it doesn't have to be hard. It can be easy, because if you're the one telling yourself how you feel about yourself, then you can actually move forward. So, handling rejection, it's a big, important topic to be dealing with from a sales point of view, because it really, really does impact your ability to perform. So how can we do that? Well, one of it is your psychology as well and your physiology. They combine. So if you're kind of hunched over and you know kind of, I don't know, um, that kind of psychology is not going to work very well. So you need to sit up straight, and just I can feel a difference going like this to going like this is massive on your own psychology, on your own physiology. It makes a difference. So you need to walk tall. And obviously, as you see, I dress well as well. That makes a massive difference on my psychology, because I know when I dress well, it just impacts on how I feel about myself. Setting these standards for yourself that you'll do this, then you actually can move forward in a more proactive way in dealing with these rejections, because the reality is you are going to get them. Sales is not an environment where you're walking in there and going, "Yep, this is going to be fabulous all the time." And I know that from I mean, one of the horriblest areas to work in. I was in film and television for a little bit of time, and that you just need to have such a strong, resilient personality, because you're constantly go do that in go to some auditions. you know there are tons of people going in there and getting rejected all the time, and it's got nothing to do whether you've got something of well, whether you do or don't have you might be the best actor in the world, but if you don't fit the role, you're not going to get the role. And so this is where it's important to understand that psychology, to be able to go, okay, this happens, and keep going forward and keep going forward and keep going forward, finding ways to recharge yourself, having a group around you that supports you, that you can actually, work with each other, so you can actually inspire each other to move forward, understanding your own physiology, as we talked about, overcoming rejection. It's really, really, really important from the perspective of how you operate as a salesperson. To operate effectively well, you need to sit tall, stand tall, whichever way it is, and move forward. And know that if you do have a rejection, if someone rejects the offering that you put forward, again, mind shift there. They're not rejecting you, they're rejecting the offer that you put forward. When you have that mindset, and it is really all about how you internally process it, you need to be processing it in a way that shows that you are separate from that outcome. You are still an amazing being, but you can move forward. You can take that next step. You can stand tall. You can believe in what you're doing, regardless of what the rejections are that you get, because it's a big factor. It actually, we start to play that out in our head. It causes that, well, procrastination, where you don't actually take that step forward. So understanding how your body works. Stand tall, believe in yourself, take that step forward, be clear about where you're going, and you'll overcome those rejections very, very simply and easily. This is Damien Andrews for the NextGen Sales Masterclass.